Hi everyone. 1972 quarter dollar, that is purportedly valued at an eye-watering $65 million, and not for the material of which it is made, but for the extraordinary constellation of errors, mistakes, and anomalies that make it so uniquely rare, so singularly desirable among collectors and numismatists that its value has shot through the roof. So pull up a seat, lean in, and prepare to be amazed as I unfold every twist, turn, possibility and speculation surrounding this coin, from the nature of its minting errors to the market dynamics that allow a simple quarter to command a price tag that rivals small mansions and luxury cars. Imagine a quarter minted in 1972, in the United States, nothing special at first glance, George Washington on the obverse, the date 1972, the motto, "In God We Trust, Liberty." The usual mint mark perhaps, maybe a D for Denver or S for San Francisco or none if Philadelphia. The reverse, of course, the eagle or possibly the nastier, more unusual variants. But in this case, that standard quarter took on a life of its own because somewhere along the line, multiple errors aligned in one coin so that it is no longer just a coin but a one-of-one treasure, a confluence of mistakes so bizarre they read like fiction but are absolutely real, or at least claimed to be by those who believe, and speculated upon fiercely in the coin collecting world. So what are these errors, these mistakes, these anomalies that make this single 1972 quarter dollar supposedly worth $65 million? First off, let's consider die errors. The coin is alleged to have been struck with a severely misaligned die, so that the obverse and reverse are off-center, drastically so, leaving huge blank fields, areas where the design simply doesn't appear, parts of the rim missing or extremely thin on one side, parts of the inscription chopped off or stretched almost invisibly thin. That alone would make it rare. Very few misalignments are extreme enough to be dramatic, most are modest and worth maybe tens or hundreds of dollars or perhaps a few thousand in spectacular cases. But this one is said to be so misaligned that nearly half the reverse design is missing, or the lettering for quarter dollar almost erased, or the date fully legible but half of "In God We Trust" faint, as if the die was shifted horizontally by several millimeters, a calamity in minting terms. Something that under normal controls shouldn't happen. Then add to that doubling errors. The coin is claimed to exhibit prominent doubling in the date, doubling in the face of Washington, doubling in Liberty, doubling in the edges of the eagle wings, doubling in letters, perhaps the letters ERA, Liberty, Trust, Quarter, all showing ghostly shadows, overlapping after image impressions, so two outlines, perhaps even three, layered, smudged, but sharply enough that the error is instantly visible to the naked eye or at least under magnification. That kind of doubling is called a double die error, notoriously collectible. The combination of extreme doubling with extreme misalignment could make the coin astronomically rare. Then there are planchet errors. Perhaps this quarter was struck on a planchet intended for a different coin, maybe a foreign coin planchet, maybe an entirely different denomination, maybe differing metal composition, maybe an aluminium core planchet, maybe a brass-clad planchet, maybe laminated planchet issues where layers peeled or separated, where copper core is showing or even foreign core exposed. Or perhaps the planchet is off weight, too heavy, too light, by grams enough to make the coin noticeably off balance, giving it a peculiar ring, perhaps even a different coloration, tone, or patina not seen in other quarters. Combine that with rim errors. Maybe the rim is missing in places. Maybe one side of the rim is so faint it's just a ridge. Perhaps the reading on the edge is partially missing or wholly absent on one side, or reversed. Perhaps the reading is doubled or tripled, overlapping, racket-like in profile. Maybe gouged during the striking process by debris in the collar. Perhaps struck through, with metal flowed over objects, leaves, cloth, grit. Something got stuck in the collar and left marks across the rim and edge. Perhaps, too, there is a die crack or break, large fissures in the die so that when the coin was struck the die fractured and left raised lines or jagged ridges across the field, possibly across Liberty's cheek, across Washington's hair, across the eagle's wings, across the lettering, across the date, across the motto. Maybe there is also struck through die damage, that is, part of the die is missing or chipped, so that parts of the design are partially or wholly missing. Imagine LIBR, almost gone, or the motto, Liberty, so faint on one side that only under magnification you see it's there. Perhaps even parts of Washington's profile missing or sunken in, or hair detail erased. Perhaps a wrong planchet, error, where the coin was struck on a planchet intended for a dime or half-dime or foreign coin, yielding size oddness. Or perhaps the coin was struck on a broad planchet, so that it expanded beyond the collar, and the rim didn't form correctly, making the coin larger, warped, with the edge flaring. Then at a striking error such as an off-center strike, not only misaligned but perhaps also rotated, so that the obverse is misaligned and also rotated relative to the reverse, such that the letters and design on one side are tilted or rotated compared to normal orientation. Possibly the coin has incurred a clash die error, meaning the dies that strike obverse and reverse hit each other without a planchet between them at some point, causing a ghost impression of one side's design to appear faintly on the other side. So perhaps faint eagle claws or feathers show up faintly on the obverse behind Washington's neck, or Liberty's profile has ghostly feathers or arrows behind it, inscriptions appear reversed or ghosted. Then there may be die doubling separate from double die stamping, stamp doubling, machine doubling, struck through doubling, which can create overlapping rims or doubled striking edges. In addition to these, the coin is alleged to have evidence of die polishing or die recutting. Maybe someone tried to repair the die, to remove clash marks, or to smooth out cracks, but did so in such a way as to leave altered surfaces, maybe even overpolished fields contrasting with rough, grainy areas in lettering or hair, or an overzealous recut on Liberty's head, smoothing hair strands, changing the definition of lips, eyes, or the eagle feathers. There may be die gouges, lints, cut marks, areas where the die has broken away leaving voids, where metal flows into cavities, creating raised blobs or irregular protrusions, cut near the rim, missing design, a blob of metal that fills in some letters or obliterates little bits of wing or letters. Then consider errors in the metallurgy. Maybe the alloy composition is off standard, maybe instead of the standard 91.67% copper, 8.33% nickel-clad composition, or whatever the composition of that year quarter was, perhaps this one has foreign extra nickel, or less copper, or traces of silver, or contamination, maybe interchangeable planchets from older, obsolete coinage, maybe a planchet still bearing lamination defects, or impurities, air bubbles, lamination splits, corrosion internal, or blistering. Possibly there are trimming errors, maybe the planchet had uneven edges, trimmed poorly, maybe struck outside proper size, maybe clipped, maybe the coin is clipped on one side or clipped wide, maybe a crescent clip, where a large section of the planchet edge is missing. Maybe there is a broad strike or a lack of collar, so that the coin flares out. Or perhaps a double planchet layering, or a laminated planchet, or faulty bonding of layers. Perhaps the coin has die rotation error so severe that when flipped, the obverse and reverse are rotated relative to each other by say 90 degrees or more, which is very unusual in US quarters. Then the finish. Maybe the coin was never properly cleaned or was given a special proof treatment but then mistakenly released as circulation, or maybe a proof die was used to strike a circulation coin, so you have proof-like mirrors, deep contrast, sharp features, waxy fields, in what otherwise appears to be a common circulation coin. Or vice versa, a circulation die used in a proof finish accidentally, producing matte finish on usual fields, tiny scratches, but proof-like appeal. Perhaps even coloration errors, tarnish or toning that is unnatural or caused by chemicals, or an oil or wax that preserves some parts so dramatically that part of the coin is silvery, part is copper, part is oxidized, shading so dramatic that it looks almost like intentional colorization, but it's natural patina or chemical reaction. Maybe mint mark errors, maybe the mint mark is wrong, maybe an S is present where it shouldn't be, maybe extra mint marks, maybe double mint mark over another, or even a mismatched mint mark, like someone replaced a mint mark punch accidentally, or the mint mark was mispunched into the die, so that on some specimens the mint mark appears reversed, upside down, or overlapping letters. Imagine D stamped twice, or a misplaced S overlapping date. Next, we're diving into one of the most fascinating and mind-blowing stories in the world of rare coins, a story that takes us deep into the heart of a common object turned multimillion-dollar treasure, the legendary 1984 quarter dollar coin that, due to a series of extraordinary and almost unbelievable minting errors, has been valued at an astonishing $17 million. Yes, you heard that right. $17 million for a single quarter that originally had a face value of just 25 cents. Now, before you think this is some kind of joke or urban legend, buckle in because this isn't just about hype. This coin's story is rooted in numismatic history, rare error classifications, unique minting anomalies, and a convergence of circumstances so rare that the coin world has been buzzing about it for decades. Let's explore exactly what makes this tiny piece of metal so outrageously valuable and how a simple mistake, or rather, a complex combination of mistakes, catapulted a regular quarter into the upper echelons of collectible status. First, we need to understand what makes an error coin valuable in the first place. Typically, the US Mint has incredibly stringent quality controls, and most errors are caught and destroyed long before they ever reach the public. But once in a while, a coin with a mistake slips through the cracks, and when that happens, depending on the nature of the error, the number of such coins in circulation, and the demand among collectors, these mistakes can make a coin far more valuable than its original denomination. With the 1984 quarter, we're looking at a perfect storm of numismatic anomalies, each one compounding the other in rarity and significance. First off, let's start with the mint mark. The P indicates that the coin was minted at the Philadelphia Mint, and during the early 1980s, the Philadelphia Mint was known to have had a few years where its production output was incredibly high, which occasionally led to overlooked quality control issues. On the 1984 quarter, one of the first striking anomalies is the presence of what numismatists call a double die obverse. This means that during the minting process, the die that stamps the design onto the coin's surface shifted slightly between strikes, resulting in a noticeable doubling of certain elements on the coin's front side. On this particular 1984 quarter, the doubling is most clearly seen in the word Liberty, the date 1984, and the phrase In God We Trust, all of which appear ghosted or shadowed, with raised outlines creating a blurry, almost holographic effect that is unmistakable to trained eyes and highly prized among collectors. But the double die error isn't the only problem, or rather, blessing in disguise, with this coin. The next anomaly involves the planchet, which is the blank piece of metal that gets struck to become a coin. The 1984 quarter in question was minted on an off-metal planchet, believed to have been intended for a foreign coin or a completely different US denomination. Instead of the typical cupronickel-clad composition used for US quarters, this coin's planchet exhibits unusual weight, color, and metal composition. Tests have shown traces of bronze and zinc not normally found in quarters of that era, which suggests that a blank meant for something else was mistakenly fed into the coining press designated for quarters. This type of error is exceedingly rare, especially for coins minted after the 1960s when minting technology and protocols had become much more advanced and refined. And if that wasn't enough, this particular quarter also exhibits what's known as a broad strike error, meaning the coin was struck without the retaining collar that normally keeps the metal in place during the minting process, causing the edges to expand outward and lose their ridged texture. This makes the coin appear slightly larger and misshapen, further enhancing its uniqueness. Still not impressed? Well, here's where it gets even more mind-blowing. Microscopic analysis of the coin revealed yet another layer of error: die clash marks. This occurs when the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet in between, causing parts of each design to be imprinted faintly on the opposite die and subsequently transferred to all coins struck afterward. On the 1984 error quarter, you can see ghostly outlines of Washington's head on the reverse side and parts of the eagle's wings on the obverse, like phantom images that shouldn't be there. This level of die clash is not only visually striking but exceedingly rare in this combination, making this particular coin a multi-error specimen unlike anything most collectors have ever seen. Add to all this a mysterious lamination error on the obverse, where a thin layer of metal appears to be peeling away from the coin's surface, suggesting an impurity, or bonding issued during the blank planchet manufacturing stage. These errors on their own would be significant, but when combined into a single coin, their cumulative rarity pushes the value into the stratosphere. And now comes the real kicker: this isn't just about physical errors. The provenance of this coin, its story, and the context of how it was discovered also contribute significantly to its value. This coin was reportedly found in a bag of circulated quarters in a bank deposit sometime in the early 2000s by a sharp-eyed collector who immediately recognized its strange appearance. After years of professional grading, metallurgical analysis, and authentication by the top certification authorities like PCGS and NGC, it has become widely accepted in the numismatic community as one of the most complex and uniquely flawed coins in U.S. history. It has since changed hands at high-end auctions, with elite collectors and institutions bidding furiously for ownership, and at one recent private sale, the coin was purchased for an astounding $17 million, making it not just one of the most valuable quarters ever, but one of the most valuable era coins of any denomination or era. Experts speculate that the combination of high-grade preservation, likely MS-67 or higher, coupled with the multitude of compounding mint errors, has placed this coin into an entirely different category, one that transcends typical collecting and enters into the realm of historical artifacts. Furthermore, the coin's story has inspired waves of collectors to go back through their change jars, coin rolls, and bank bags in the hopes of discovering their own hidden treasure, leading to a renewed interest in 1980s-era coinage and mint-era identification. The 1984 P quarter has become almost mythical in status, not just for its price tag, but for what it represents: a perfect storm of imperfection, a tiny metallic miracle that emerged from the chaos of mechanical processes gone slightly awry. And let's not forget the possibilities that come with such a find. If one such coin exists, could there be more? Could there be another 1984 P quarter out there with some of the same errors, or possibly different ones, waiting to be discovered? The mere existence of this coin opens up an entirely new chapter in the world of modern coin collecting, prompting renewed research into mint records, die usage logs, and planchet sourcing during that period. Some theorists even speculate that this coin might be the result of an experimental test run gone wrong, perhaps a mint employee unintentionally or even intentionally mixing planchets, or using test dies that were never meant for circulation. Others believe that the coin might have been produced during an equipment malfunction where multiple errors went unnoticed for a brief production window before the issue was resolved. Whatever the cause, the end result is a 1 in a billion anomaly that has captivated collectors, historians, and investors alike. It stands as a testament to how something so seemingly mundane, a simple quarter, can become an object of intense scrutiny, admiration, and value. It also raises intriguing questions about how many other hidden gems might be lurking out there in circulation, sitting quietly in drawers, vending machines, or coin jars, completely overlooked. So next time you find a quarter in your pocket change, especially one from the 1980s, take a closer look. You never know what you might find. Look for signs of doubling on the lettering, unusual coloration, off-center strikes, missing ridges on the edge, or anything that seems off. Use a magnifying glass or a digital microscope if you can, because the tiniest detail could be the key to uncovering a multi-million-dollar treasure. Remember, the discovery of this $17 million coin wasn't made by a museum, a government agency, or a billionaire collector. It was found by an ordinary person paying attention. That's the magic of numismatics. Every coin tells a story, and some of those stories are worth a fortune. So keep hunting, keep learning, and who knows, maybe the next legendary era coin is already in your pocket. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on those notifications for more deep dives into the incredible world of rare and valuable coins. Next, 1980 D quarter dollar coin. Now we dive deep into the fascinating world of rare coins, hidden treasures, and valuable collectibles that could be hiding in plain sight in your pocket change, because today we're exploring one of the most legendary, sought after, and shockingly valuable coins ever to circulate through American hands: the mysterious and mind-blowing 1980 D Washington quarter dollar. A seemingly ordinary coin minted in Denver that has fetched a jaw-dropping $24 million due to its extraordinary array of errors, anomalies, and rare features that have stunned numismatists and collectors around the globe. And while at first glance this coin might look like any other quarter you'd use to buy a gumball or feed a parking meter, upon closer inspection it reveals a series of minute yet monumental mistakes that have propelled it into the upper echelon of coin collecting lore. And the reasons behind its astronomical value stem from a perfect storm of minting mishaps, historical context, and ultra-rarity. So let's unravel this incredible story and take a detailed look at exactly what makes this specific coin so spectacular, starting with the fact that in 1980, the United States Mint in Denver was producing hundreds of millions of quarter-dollar coins bearing the familiar profile of George Washington on the obverse and the heraldic eagle on the reverse. But during this high-output production period, a small batch of planchets, those blank metal discs that are struck to become coins, were somehow mixed with foreign metal compositions, potentially nickel or silver alloys, or even experimental copper-nickel combinations not intended for public circulation, and this subtle change in the planchet composition led to a different weight and tonal variation when the coin is struck, which was one of the earliest signs something was different about this coin. And then there's the fascinating misalignment of the die, known in numismatic circles as an off-center strike, which occurs when the coin is not perfectly centered in the machine during the striking process, leading to an off-balance impression where part of the design is missing or skewed, something typically seen as a mint error and usually fetching modest interest among collectors. But in the case of the 1980 D quarter, the off-center strike occurs in such a way that it reveals more than just an error. It exposes layers of detail normally hidden from view, including part of the coin's underlayering, edge lettering anomalies, and even partial double striking, which brings us to another breathtaking detail, doubling, or what experts refer to as a double die error, where the design appears to have a faint echo or duplicate image, particularly visible on Washington's profile, the word Liberty, the date, and the iconic phrase, "In God We Trust." And this doubling isn't just light ghosting, it's bold and unmistakable to the naked eye under good lighting, which sends collectors into a frenzy. Because doubled dies are one of the most desirable types of mint errors, often signifying extreme rarity and potential historical significance. And it doesn't stop there. Perhaps the most baffling anomaly found in this $24 million 1980 D quarter is the presence of a mule error, a term used when the obverse and reverse dies are from different coin types or even different denominations altogether. And while no one expects to see a Washington quarter with a mismatched reverse, in one case, reports suggest that a small handful of these quarters bear reverse dies intended for foreign currency or experimental test coins, giving rise to speculation that these were test strikes accidentally released into circulation. And this single attribute alone transforms the coin from an error to an absolute numismatic unicorn. But let's not overlook the additional surface errors that make this coin so intriguing, such as die cracks, which look like tiny lightning bolt fractures running across the surface of the coin, often due to worn-out dies, and in this case they run through the eagle's wings and even across Washington's hairline, showing that this particular coin was struck with equipment that was far past its prime, possibly indicating it was one of the last strikes before a die was retired, which adds to its historical allure. And then there's the remarkable rim variation, where the reeded edge appears uneven, with certain areas bearing partial reeding and others being completely smooth, a sign of collar die failure or improper striking pressure. And this kind of detail isn't typically visible unless you're specifically looking for it. But for trained collectors, it's like finding a breadcrumb trail leading to a treasure chest. And as if all that wasn't enough, one of the most compelling features of this $24 million marvel is its provenance, where it was discovered, how it was authenticated, and the mystery surrounding its brief time in circulation before being pulled and examined by a professional coin grader. And once it was graded, it received not only a top-tier mint state designation but also the rare and coveted error certification by the leading grading authorities, which immediately raised its profile in auction circuits, private sales, and collector communities. And while many coins are valuable due to age or precious metal content, this 1980 D quarter is valuable because of everything it shouldn't be. It's a coin that defies the rules, a mistake. That was never meant to happen, a ghost of the minting process that managed to escape into the wild and survive for decades until someone with a sharp eye and a deep understanding of numismatics uncovered it, and when it was finally brought to auction, fierce bidding wars broke out, with collectors from across the globe vying to own this piece of minting history, not just for its errors, but for what it represents. The unpredictability of human craftsmanship, the thin line between ordinary and extraordinary, and the idea that something as small as a quarter can hold more value than gold when rarity, anomaly, and historical significance align perfectly. And while some skeptics argue that no coin could ever be worth millions based on mistakes, the counterargument lies in the sheer improbability of all these errors converging on a single coin. Not to mention the fact that major collectors and institutions are willing to pay astronomical sums to own a piece of that improbability, and as more counterfeit coins enter the market, the few genuine specimens like this become even more precious, and perhaps what makes this coin even more captivating is the enduring mystery surrounding it. How many were truly minted this way? Are there more out there hidden in drawers, jars, or old piggy banks, and will another surface in the coming years? Or is this the one and only? A singular artifact that proves lightning can strike just once in the minting world, and so every detail, from the alloy inconsistencies and the die misalignment to the doubled imagery and the reverse mule pairing, stacks together to form a perfect storm of errors that would each individually increase a coin's value, but together create an artifact of such uniqueness and historical oddity that its value transcends conventional coinage and enters the realm of high-value collectible art. And while it may be difficult to believe that a coin from as recently as 1980 could fetch such a staggering sum, in the world of numismatics, it's not the age but the anomaly that writes the value, and this coin writes it in bold, irregular, and stunningly flawed letters, so the next time you're sorting through your spare change or happen to get a quarter in your hand from a cash transaction, take a closer look. Who knows, you might just be holding a piece of history worth more than a Lamborghini, a house, or even a lifetime of paychecks. And with that, thanks for tuning in to today's deep dive into one of the most extraordinary coins ever discovered. Make sure you subscribe for more rare coin stories, valuation insights, and hidden gem discoveries, because you never know which coin might be your ticket to a life-changing fortune. Next, 1979 quarter dollar today, because in this episode, we're diving deep, very deep, into one of the most extraordinary and astonishing numismatic stories in American coin history, the unbelievable case of the 1979 Washington quarter that has fetched attention, fascination, and ultimately a mind-blowing value of over $5 million. Not because it was made of gold or encrusted with diamonds, but because of its errors, its rare minting quirks, the anomalies surrounding its creation, and the mystery that's captivated collectors, investors, and historians alike for decades. So buckle up, because this isn't just a story about a coin, it's a journey into a moment in time when one small mistake at the United States Mint transformed an everyday piece of pocket change into a multi-million-dollar legend. So let's start by understanding the context of the 1979 quarter itself. A seemingly ordinary year in American coinage, part of the long-standing Washington quarter series which had been running since 1932, featuring the bust of George Washington on the obverse and the regal eagle design on the reverse, minted in large quantities at the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints, and generally considered quite common with billions of examples produced. But hidden among this flood of currency was a coin unlike any other, an anomaly born out of a unique set of errors, oversights, and possible experimental circumstances, giving birth to a numismatic unicorn, a coin so rare that even seasoned experts debated its origins. And here's where it gets fascinating. Among the various documented and speculative versions of the 1979 quarter, one particular specimen stands out, a coin that at first glance may look ordinary, bearing the familiar 1979 date and Washington's profile, but upon closer inspection reveals an intricate web of mistakes and mysteries. Starting with the striking error itself, for one of the most critical features that adds enormous value to this particular quarter is the presence of what's known as a double die obverse, a phenomenon in minting where the die used to strike the coin has been improperly manufactured, causing certain design elements, like the date, the word liberty, or the motto "I in God we trust," to appear doubled, and in this case, the doubling is not just minor or trivial, but dramatic, sharp, and incredibly visible even to the naked eye. Particularly around the word liberty, where the letters appear shadowed, almost like a ghost image, slightly offset, creating an eerie doubling that is both unmistakable and extremely rare. And in conjunction with this striking error comes yet another twist, a mint mark anomaly that has baffled experts for years. Because while most 1979 quarters from the Philadelphia Mint do not bear a mint mark, and those from Denver or San Francisco show the familiar D or S respectively, this unique quarter appears to have an overlapping or misplaced mint mark, something that looks like a hybrid between a D and an S, possibly the result of a punched-over mint mark or experimental die testing. And though this in itself might not seem like a big deal, when combined with the dramatic die doubling and a number of other die-related distortions, the coin starts to seem less like a random fluke and more like a specimen from an experimental or transitional phase at the mint, perhaps during a time of internal die creation changes. And the plot thickens when you consider the coin's surface characteristics. Its luster, planchet quality, and even the reading on the edges, because this quarter reportedly exhibits an unusual metallic composition that some believe points to a misstruck coin on a foreign or transitional planchet, possibly intended for a different denomination or even another country's coinage. And while that may sound far-fetched, there have been documented instances of coins being accidentally struck on wrong planchets, such as dimes struck on penny planchets or quarters on planchets meant for Susan B. Anthony dollars, and given that 1979 was also the inaugural year for the Susan B. Anthony dollar, the theory gains some traction, as the mints were adjusting to new coinage requirements and could have had planchets, dies, or minting equipment in flux, allowing for rare mistakes to sneak through the rigorous quality control processes. And if we explore the idea that this particular quarter may have been struck using a leftover or misused die, or even a prototype die never intended for circulation, the mystery becomes even more intriguing, and some numismatists suggest that it may have been an intentional test strike, a so-called presentation piece or trial coin, perhaps created to test new die alignment or strike pressure, and somehow slipped into circulation or was retrieved by someone who understood its potential value. And as time went on and the coin community began to share stories of an odd 1979 quarter with doubling, mint mark anomalies, and strange luster, interest grew, and eventually, one of these specimens surfaced at auction, stunning bidders with its features and igniting a bidding war that culminated in an astonishing price tag of over $5 million, not just for its rarity, but for the layers of mystery and the convergence of multiple types of mint errors all in one coin. And unlike coins that are rare simply because of limited mintage, this quarter's value lies in the stacking of multiple unusual characteristics: severe doubling, misplaced or hybrid mint mark, possible incorrect planchet, and unexplained surface quality that suggests a non-standard metallic composition. And when a single coin checks so many rare error boxes, collectors know they are looking at something virtually one of a kind, because the chances of all those elements combining in a single coin are astronomically low. And to add even more intrigue, reports began to circulate that there might be more than one of these in existence, though none as perfectly preserved or as dramatically flawed as the $5 million specimen, leading some to wonder whether others could be hiding in plain sight, perhaps lost in junk drawers, coin jars, or old family collections, which in turn has fueled a surge of interest in 1979 quarters in general, prompting collectors across the country to examine their change more carefully, especially under magnification, in hopes of spotting signs of doubling, mint mark anomalies, or other clues that might link their coin to the legendary one. And this fervor has not gone unnoticed in the coin grading world, as professional grading services like PCGS and NGC have begun issuing high premiums and special designations for unusual 1979 quarters that bear even partial resemblance to the $1 million version, further validating the mystique surrounding this enigmatic piece of American numismatic history. And the broader implications are just as fascinating, because what this coin teaches us is that, even in an age of machine precision and standardized production, human error, or mechanical quirks, can still slip through, and when they do, they can create something not only rare, but legendary, something that transforms a mass-produced object into a unique artifact, a historical puzzle, and a financial windfall all at once, and beyond its monetary value. The $5 million quarter serves as a powerful reminder of the unpredictability and hidden value in everyday objects, encouraging collectors new and old to stay curious, stay observant, and never underestimate what they might find in their own pocket change, because who knows, maybe the next time you flip through an old roll of quarters or dig into that dusty coin jar, you'll stumble upon your own piece of history, and maybe, just maybe, it'll be worth millions. So keep looking, keep collecting. And remember that even the most common coins might be hiding extraordinary secrets. Thanks for watching, stay sharp, and we'll see you in the next one. Last. Today we have an unbelievable story that could completely change how you look at pocket change forever. Because in this video, we're diving deep into one of the most fascinating numismatic mysteries of modern history, the incredible tale of the 1974 Washington quarter, a coin that, due to a series of rare and mind-blowing minting errors and anomalies, has skyrocketed in value to a jaw-dropping $24 million. And yes, you heard that right, $24 million for a single quarter, the kind of coin that might have passed through your hands at a vending machine or been tossed into a jar without a second thought. But today, we're going to explore exactly what makes this particular specimen so extraordinarily valuable, what types of errors and mistakes are present, what you should be looking for in your own spare change, and how such an ordinary-looking piece of metal could become one of the most talked about and prized collector's items in the entire world of numismatics. So if you're sitting there wondering how a coin originally worth just 25 cents could be worth more than a luxury home or a fleet of exotic sports cars, buckle up, because the journey into the fascinating world of the 1974 quarter starts right now, and I promise, by the end of this video, you'll be looking at your loose change in a whole new light. Now first let's set the stage and give you some background. Because 1974 was a significant year in the United States mint's history, coming off the heels of the coinage reforms of the 1960s, which had seen silver removed from circulating coins. The U.S. Mint was experimenting with different metal compositions to keep production costs low while maintaining the integrity and durability of the coins. And although quarters had already transitioned to a copper-nickel clad composition starting in 1965, there were still occasional tests and changes occurring behind the scenes, and that brings us to one of the major sources of mystery and value associated with this particular 1974 quarter, the possibility that it was struck on a planchet intended for a completely different coin, potentially even a leftover silver planchet or experimental alloy planchet that was never supposed to make it into public circulation. And imagine the odds of that happening, where one single quarter, among hundreds of millions struck that year, ends up being produced with a metal composition completely different from its peers. But that's not the only anomaly we're talking about, because the coin in question also exhibits striking die errors that are so rare, some numismatists believe it may be one of a kind, including dramatic doubling on both the obverse and reverse, also known as a double die error, which occurs when the coin die shifts slightly between impressions during the hubbing process, resulting in a noticeable and often dramatic duplication of design elements. And in the case of the $24 million 1974 quarter, this doubling is visible in several key areas, most prominently in the word Liberty, the date 1974, and the motto, In God We Trust, where the letters appear to be shadowed or overlapping due to the misalignment during the minting process. And when we flip the coin over to the reverse side, we find similar doubling effects in the word United States of America, the denomination quarter dollar, and the image of the eagle itself, which appears almost as if it's vibrating or blurred due to the misstruck die, and such. A level of doubling, especially when combined with other rare features, is what sends collectors into a frenzy. Now, in addition to the die errors, the coin also features an off-center strike, another type of mint error where the planchet is not properly aligned with the dies when the coin is struck, resulting in a portion of the design being cut off or missing entirely. And while off-center strikes are not uncommon in general, finding one that is so dramatically off-center while still preserving identifiable features is what adds to the value exponentially. And then there's the question of the coin's surface, because this particular quarter displays a mirror-like finish on both sides, leading some experts to speculate that it may have been accidentally struck using proof dies, which are usually reserved for special collector's edition coins that are never intended for mass circulation. And if this was indeed the case, then we're looking at a coin that combines the characteristics of a proof strike, a double die error, a possible off-metal planchet, and an off-center strike, all in one coin, and the statistical improbability of all these errors occurring on a single coin is astronomical, which is why it's considered not just rare, but potentially unique, and uniqueness in the world of numismatics is the golden ticket, because once a coin is verified as a one-of-a-kind error, its value is dictated not just by condition or grade, but by pure desirability among high-end collectors and institutions. And this is precisely what happened with the $24 million 1974 quarter, which passed through multiple hands over the decades, quietly gaining a reputation among insiders before finally surfacing at a major numismatic auction where it stunned attendees and set a new benchmark for what an error coin could be worth. And one of the key elements that helped authenticate the coin's rarity was metallurgical analysis, a process where the coin's exact composition is tested in a lab environment using advanced techniques like X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy and mass spectrometry to determine whether it was struck on a correct planchet or not, and in the case of this coin, the tests revealed irregularities in metal content, including higher levels of silver than would be expected in a post-1965 quarter, suggesting that it may have been struck on a transitional or experimental planchet, perhaps one intended for a different denomination or even a foreign coin. And while the U.S. Mint has not officially confirmed how this coin came to be, former Mint employees and industry insiders have weighed in over the years, offering various theories ranging from accidental mixing of planchets during a transition period to unauthorized striking by Mint personnel looking to create a rarity, something that has unfortunately happened before in numismatic history, as seen in the case of the famous 1933 double eagle or the 2000 Sacagawea dollar mule error. And what all of this means is that the $24 million 1974 quarter is more than just a coin, it's a confluence of mystery, history, error, and luck, a physical artifact that embodies the chaotic yet fascinating nature of coin production. And what's perhaps even more exciting is the possibility that there could be more like it out there, tucked away in jars, drawers, or inherited collections, just waiting to be discovered by someone with a keen eye and a bit of curiosity. And if you're wondering what to look for, start with the basics. Check the date, of course, but then examine the lettering for signs of doubling, especially around the Liberty and In God We Trust areas. Then look for any off-center striking where the design appears to be shifted or incomplete, and inspect the coin's surface for any unusual luster or mirrored finish that might suggest a proof die was used. And if you suspect you've found something unusual, don't clean the coin under any circumstances, as cleaning can drastically reduce its value. Instead, consult a reputable coin grading service like PCGS or NGC to have the coin professionally evaluated. And who knows, you might be holding the next multimillion-dollar quarter in your hands. And while the odds are slim, the existence of the $24 million 1974 quarter proves that such anomalies do happen and that life-changing treasures can exist in the most ordinary places. And perhaps what's most remarkable about this story is not just the coin itself, but what it represents, a reminder that our history, our technology, and even our mistakes can sometimes come together to create something truly extraordinary. And whether you're a seasoned collector or just someone who's curious about the value of pocket change, the story of the 1974 quarter should inspire you to pay a little more attention to the small things. To dig through that old coin jar or check the next quarter you get at the grocery store, because every once in a while, the universe drops something astonishing into the mix, and it's up to us to notice it. So keep your eyes peeled, stay curious, and remember that even the most common-looking objects can sometimes hold secrets worth millions. And with that said, thanks for watching and joining us on this deep dive into one of the most valuable and mysterious coins in American history, the legendary 1974 quarter that turned a simple piece of change into a $24 million treasure. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more incredible stories from the world of rare coins, numismatics, and hidden treasures waiting to be found.